Hello, I'm Taiga, and welcome to a special Seed Sunday. This is a series I usually run every Sunday where I show you seeds for Minecraft, but today we're doing it a bit differently because a brand new update has just come out for Minecraft. It's called the Village and Pillage update, and as you might expect based on that name, a big part of this update requires you to find a brand new village in an existing world, or to use a new world, and therefore a new seed, to find one yourself. And rather than just using the seed finder, which I'm usually a big advocate for, a lot of people have been asking why not show off a good Minecraft village seed. So today I have a seed which doesn't just have a couple of Minecraft villages in their spawn, it actually has several Minecraft villages in their spawn of lots of different types, and then those Minecraft villages all have crazy weird things about them, and rather than just telling you about them, why don't I show you through the course of today's video. But first, the basics. The seed's going to be on screen right now. This came in from CNXNT, and it's one that was meant to be a 1.12 seed, but it works especially well for 1.11 and should work for any future update, as long as, of course, they don't change the world gen. But yeah, this is a really great seed because you spawn on a pretty big plains. That's something that everyone wants. Everyone loves it when you have a huge flat area to build on, and although this one isn't perfectly flat, it is big enough and contains lots of individual flat areas, so if you wanted to make something huge you could, but also it's just lots of individual building opportunities. But you're not going to want to stay here because, again, the Village and Pillage update's out, so instead what you're going to want to do is head south a little bit, and if you just head a couple of hundred blocks south, you're going to immediately see two separate villages. There's one over there, you can just about see, and there's one over here, and this village is really, really interesting by itself. Again, there's lots of things I could say about it, despite it being the smaller of the two villages. I mean, for instance, there's a ravine going through the middle of it. For instance, it goes into the extreme hills and has a little overhang here. There's lots of really crazy things I want to talk about. But first, can we just quickly mention the fact that, wait a minute, there really is a ravine going through this village, then there's a ravine going through that village, then going through both of those, there is a stronghold. There is genuine access to a stronghold in a brand new Minecraft village, and because of the way this guy's house generated over the ravine, he's stuck just staring at you regardless of what you do. Same with this villager right here, actually. Both of their villages generated into the ravine, and because of the way the code generates for Minecraft villages, they've deliberately tried to have dirt under the house rather than a huge structure like they did before. So this means we have something brand new where we just have villagers floating over the ravine that will stare at you as you check this thing out. And you're going to want to check out the stronghold. Again, we can talk about the villagers, and we will talk about the villagers just a little bit later. But for now, let me mention the fact that if you go through the stronghold, just like I have, and head to these corners, you're going to find yourself, that's right, it's a mob spawner or a dungeon, which ran right through the stronghold, which means you're going to find in here bunch of gunpowder as well as a saddle. You're going to find in here the cat disc, and the fact that you can get horse armor and a saddle and all that gunpowder right off the bat from spawn, as well as finding, of course, the stronghold to begin with, that is absurd. Obviously, there's also lava down there if you want to go to the nether. This village has everything you want before you consider the fact that, oh yeah, and it's a brand new village. In this update, they updated the look of all of the village buildings. There's so much more variety. They're usually much bigger now, and you can see how the village generation is much different as well, and you can really see this village kind of pushes the limits of what a village should be. I mean, both by having the ravine stronghold going through it and these villagers being trapped over the edge, both by the fact that it goes into the mountains in a slightly weird way there, also in the fact that, as you can see over here, the center of the village is nowhere near the center. It's like way off to the side here, and then there's a really big pathway going off this way, which then leads to lots of mini islands being created by the village, for the village basically. And yeah, you can see how, oh, there's just a little bit of the village which goes out into the ocean. It's weird, but it gives you a free dock in Minecraft, so who's complaining? Again, really nice, and this is just the start of what you could do with this village. And remember, this is just one village on this seed. I said there were several earlier, or at least I hope I said there were several earlier, because over here, just to the east a little bit, the second village you can see from spawn, you get something even better, something that was not possible before this update. We have a double blacksmith seed. So this was only possible in Java and on console if you had large villages set in a super flat world. Basically, it wasn't available in survival, but here we have a blacksmith, and then here, just, kind of nearby, we have a second blacksmith. So I kind of want to talk about villages a bunch in this video, so as you can probably imagine, it's important given that we do Seed Sunday a bunch, but this update has finally made it so that you don't just get one blacksmith per village, you can get 0, but you can get upwards of 1, you can get 2, 3 might be possible, 3 has been possible on occasion, 4 might be possible, it might be possible to get only blacksmith villages. We don't know for sure how wide that, generation will go, but it's something I'm excited to see in the future. Here you can see you get 2 iron pickaxes, which is nice. Also, there's a grindstone in both of them, brand new item. But in this one, you can see how in addition to that, you're going to get yourself some iron, some saddle and stuff like that. And the great thing about the new villagers is it's not just the blacksmith that provides loot. It used to be like, oh yeah, there were other villagers and then there were blacksmiths, the real caring ones. But you can see how pretty much every house contains a chest, and they're not all valuable. Like, oh yeah, 6 potatoes, we've done it, boys. We have found the ultimate loot chest. No, that's not what anyone actually thinks here, right? But the fact that you can see, looking at all these different buildings, a lot of them contain chests, and some of those chests might be valuable. And also, again, the village is very, very big. It even seeps out into the swamp over here, and I find this interesting on all levels. Like, oh yeah, this is a very big village. Look how far it extends in each direction. You know, this seems to be often the new standard. This is on the extreme end of it, but you can see how big you can get villages and how nice this seed is, because the two villages nearest to the spawn are both so big and both contain so many things to wonder at. But they're not the only two villages on this seed, not the only two points of interest, because we'll be talking about pillager outposts and other types. But on the way first, I wanted to talk about this tree, because when I first spotted it, I was like, there's no way this is natural, and it's clearly not. There's clearly a world gen error in this update, but this is just so wacky, seeing 6 separate branches all come from the same tree, and the tree's clearly just growing accidentally taller and taller. So maybe you find that fascinating, maybe you don't. But what you will find fascinating is if instead of going to the north of spawn, you go to the east of spawn, because what you should find over here is a Taiga village. However, what you instead find is a village which is in a Taiga biome, but it has the old classic, you know, kind of spawn thing of, because the well for this village, the center point, it used to be a well, now it's a tree, because the center point of the village is technically in plains by about 10 blocks, all of this Taiga village, again, it's very much in the Taiga biome, you're going to find berries around it, etc. But because of the fact that it is technically speaking a plains village, it's got very different houses, aesthetic, etc. than you'd normally find. So I think this is an interesting thing. You know, it's a quirky little find. And yeah, you can see how it's a nice grand big village, and you're noticing how all 3 of the villages I've shown off, they've all been plains villages so far, but they've all had very different houses. Some have been the same, like this is the standard common house now, but we've seen like this is new for this one, right? This house right here is extra wide. This one right here, you know, they're very slightly different between villages. There's a much bigger pool of houses to pull from, and you'll see that as we go to our next village. Although on the way, it should be noted, at these coordinates right here, you're going to run into an issue if you don't deal with this and you run past it, because lava next to a giant roof forest, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out what's going to happen there, right? I mean, that's my opinion at least. Anyway, so yeah, you want to head to the north of spawn now, so head back to spawn, and then head north from there. Or you can just head straight north from spawn, because you might prefer this to the Stronghold ravine. You know, it seems unlikely to me, but you might just. This is the first desert village of the seed, and it's roughly the same distance as the plains village, but on the other side to the north. It's right at the edge of a desert in Savanna. Again, you can see the same kind of biome bleed we used to see before this update, but it's charming and different, so maybe you like that, maybe you don't. But you also can see how, oh yeah, it's an overhanging little thing, because the villages will deliberately destroy the biomes around them to give them space to grow, and it gives you some really interesting terrain, and maybe even ideas on how you can make terrain your own in the future, so maybe you like that. But yeah, we have a desert village here. I think it's interesting. I think the fact that it uses jungle doors is weird. I think the fact that they have these huge towers, which kind of give them away, is nice. Also, they contain loot. It's usually not that good, but yeah, 5 cacti. If only there was a way to get cactuses in the desert. I, for one, know that I can't imagine that being possible. But no, more seriously, this desert village is nice, but it's our first village which has a pillager outpost nearby, and it's not just any pillager outpost. So again, this is a little bit further from spawn. We're talking more like 500 blocks than a few hundred, closer to 1,000 even. But when you get to this you know, outpost, you'll see how this pushes the rules for what an outpost really should be. So this is a villager outpost, except it's a villager outpost which is stretched all the way to the ground. So even though Minecraft villagers have put a lot of effort into stopping themselves stretching, the pillager outpost has not done the same, and it means you get this, a very interesting pillager outpost where 3 of its side buildings are right here around it. Like you can see, there's a hut with some pumpkins if you want those. There's one of these cage things over here. There's a little house that they sometimes pretend to live in, and then there's another one down there on the ground. They're all spread out in different areas, and again, the iron golem here is like in a separate place basically to the rest, but the fact that it's so tall up means that you can do a couple of things. One, you can easily sneak into the second floor, which means if you don't want to kill pillagers, but you do want to get access to a potential crossbow, or in the case of this one, it's like more potatoes. We all love potatoes today, right? It's Latvian Minecraft holiday apparently, but it's a really easy pillager outpost to get to. It's a really pillager outpost to get into, and it's also super fascinating to look at. So again, it's very hard not to like finding this here, but just in case you're like, yeah, I don't know what I think about that, head north a little more. Again, we're heading a little bit further out from spawn, but you're going to find yourself a couple of desert temples. You're going to find yourself even more lava pits. This seed has that wonderful survival feature everywhere, and not just having lava pits. The lava pits are beautiful, at least that's my take on them. Look at this lava pit. Tell me it's not beautiful. You can't, because you're not a monster. But yeah, you can also see how further to the north than that, we're going to find another desert temple, and we're going to find another desert village. So this one is a little bit less interesting in how it blurs the environment, but it is very big. Again, really showing off just how big Minecraft villages, can be now. They've gotten so much bigger than they were before. You can also see, if you've never seen it yet, just how different desert villages are to the rest of them. You can see, looking around the rest of it, like, oh, it's another tall building. Look how many crops there are, and look at the fact that there is a desert blacksmith. So these are less common than they seem to be in plains, again, based on my observation, but you can still get some free loot, and it's a little bit easier because no doors even need to be opened. So just keep that in mind, that you can find blacksmiths in the desert as well. It takes a little bit longer to navigate these places, which I think is nice. It makes it a bit more interesting, in my opinion. And the great thing about this village is it's next to another one. A great thing about this seed is villagers seem to come in two for the most part, because next to this desert village, or I mean, next might be a strong word, but very close by to this village, you can see there is a Savanna village. That's free off the new villages already, just on this one seed, within 1,000 blocks of spawn. That's why I think it's so amazing. And yeah, looking at this one, you can see how this also, very different architecture, very different designs of buildings, because every village is so different now. But looking at this one, you can see how it's just been entirely tidal flowed by a bit of water that generates up here. This happens a lot in Savanna villages, and it makes for a really interesting contrast. Like, oh yeah, these are the waterfall people. They just like living near the waterfall. That's what I've gathered at the very least. And yeah, maybe you gather that too, or maybe you just think they're weird people. Either way, it's a thing you can find. It's a thing that exists. It's a Savanna village, and honestly, of all the villages, I think the Savanna village is probably my least favorite. I love Savanna biomes. I love Savanna villages before when they were all the same. But something about the way they build, something about the unique things you find here, just doesn't really lure me in. So, assuming that is the case for you, you found these 5 villages, that Pillage Outpost, you found a couple of desert temples already, but you're like, what more have you got, Toy Cat? Surely this isn't all. And to that I would say, well, I think you're being unreasonable with these demands. But what I am going to say is all you have to do is head a couple thousand blocks east of spawn. Again, a little bit further than 1,000, but it's still within the range of doable in a day in survival. So head back to the spawn, and then once you've gone to spawn, just start heading east. You'll find a few villages along the way. Some of them are really big, some of them are really long, some of them are really small. You find a lot of really bizarre ones. Again, this is so longly stretched out. It's such a weird village. You're going to find a few of these along the way, but assuming you want to find a different village type, because I mean, like, again, it really should be stressed just how great this seed is for villagers in terms of how many you're going to find as you go along, and how different and weird each one's going to be. Because it used to be that finding 7 villages wasn't that much better than finding 4 villages, but now you can find 7 unique different things just by going on a long walk, or in our case of our thing here, right here, going for a long fly. But yeah, if you just head a couple thousand blocks east, you'll see this absolutely beautiful gravel hills biome. It's just so nice. It's a biome made up entirely of gravel, everyone's favorite block. But more seriously, you're going to find yourself a snowy plains. Again, these are a somewhat rare biome, as I've learned from my experiences of looking for igloos in various challenge runs, but you will find yourself some snow villages here. Again, snow villages, kind of hard to find before. A lot of people didn't know, but Bedrock had exclusive snow villages before. These have now been added to Java. But here you can see, this is a snow village as of the current update. It's super fun to see. And personally, I feel like it's not even right to look at it this way. What you need to do is you need to wait till it's raining, and then you need to come back here, because then of course it's going to be a nice snowy winter wonderland, or just, I guess, yeah, like place where it is cold wonderland. And yeah, you can see all of the different villager buildings, very different to all the other biomes. The other biomes, you can see the link between them, but this place is just like, oh yeah, there's a really cold place and there's lots of villagers with very cold clothing on, and that's a whole crazy thing. A lot of them have furnaces in their house because they need to, and yeah, there's even blue ice you can find here, which I think is great because blue ice is quite rare above ground, as long as you don't mind making this guy homeless, because I mean, this guy probably deserves it, right? I mean, besides the fact that he has a red bed, which is best color, so good job, man. I mean, besides that, he's basically asking for his blue ice to be mined, and yeah, if you don't mind making this guy homeless, you can get a bunch of free blue ice, which I think is really nice, and just in general, super fascinating place to be. It's got like mini igloos around the place. It's really wonderful, and the thing I like most about this, I would say, is that because of this, both in terms of the snow biome, in terms of the desert, in terms of the savannah, in terms of the plains, now you can find beds anywhere you go in Minecraft, and it basically encourages you to actually interact with the villagers. Then you combine that with the pillager raids, which are kind of a boss battle, and I like that villagers have been made a real thing you need to care about, and the fact that they improved the generation for that is something that really does make it worthwhile, in my opinion. Oh, also, I should mention, there is still a regular old igloo found just over here. It's a bit of a weird one because it kind of merges into the environment, but there is an igloo. If you want to do your whole nonsense, go to the basement, you can still do that. For those unaware what I'm talking about, basically you in the basement of an igloo, you find a villager and you find a zombie villager, and you can convert, if depending on how you do this, you can either convert him into him, or you can convert him into him. But yeah, you can actually find villagers in these places, and it's weird because these are kind of set to a biome, and like they have homes now, and it makes you almost feel obligated to bring him back home, which is why I'd recommend just, rather than having that obligation, you might as well just have 2 zombie villagers, because again, it gives you all the ingredients you need to cure both zombie villagers. But yeah, I'd rather not do that. That's a lot of effort. So yeah, also you can just take the golden apple, and now you've got some free food. How nice. But yeah, the actual thing I was going to talk about is the fact that we have a second, like a snowy village right here. Again, not that much further from the first one, which is admittedly quite far from spawn, but still worth coming to. And this has even more blue ice. So if you like blue ice, if you want to make a pathway, but mining packed ice is intimidating for you, well, one, mining packed ice just got a whole bunch easier, as in future we'll see that come in handy for videos, and 2, there's a bunch of blue ice to be found over here. But it is worth saying there's a bunch more of the pillager outposts, which aren't necessarily broken. Maybe you prefer that, maybe you don't prefer that. I mean, a lot of them have crossbows, including this one. So if you want to get yourself a crossbow, you haven't made one to date, then this is the way to do so. Also, I forgot to mention this one earlier on because it's a pretty forgettable village, and it's a little bit further than the other 2, but it's kind of in the same cluster as the first 2 villages I mentioned. Here's one of the smallest villages I've seen for Minecraft Bedrock so far, and it's still pretty big, right? We still have 5 distinct separate houses, or 4 houses and a church. Is a church a house? That's the philosophical question we should be asking. And it still has a couple of sheep here, if you want to start a sheep farm from nothing. And it still has a couple of lakes of lava. Like, it's interesting that even the worst village in this update, which previously you just, like, burn them to the ground, like, what does it matter having 2 villages and stuff? Now, even the worst of villages, they still have some value. I'd say their value is lower relative to the others, because every other village is so much better. But there is still some reason to go to these, and it's not an entire disappointment if you find a small village. It's just mostly a disappointment, which is a big improvement. Again, you can never make it so that everything is great, but the fact that they made it so even the worst got improved is something I'm a big fan of. And maybe you are too. If you are, let me know in that comment section, which is, supposedly used for feedback and stuff. I mean, so that's not always how it is, but why not let me know in those comments. And also, if you really like this video, you can share it. You can subscribe with that bell if you want to see more Seed Sunday videos every single Sunday, or most Sundays on this channel. And for now, I hope you all enjoyed this week's Seed Sunday on a Tuesday, because I'm going to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.